Hi everyone, this is Kelly, and I'm here to do a look at my favorites. This one will just be my tarot, which I've done before. I have in the past, periodically will update. I have cubicles right by my desk, and I have a cubicle for favorite tarot decks and favorite oracle decks. Now, I moved this past October, and I didn't want to, obviously nobody loves to move. I mean, the physical act of moving. Well, maybe some people do, but I'm not going to take things. My theory was to really downsize, take only the things that I really wanted to take, and I had a specific place for, right? So I went through everything. I mean, really touch. Well, obviously, I had to touch everything because I had a packet, but it was very, very intentionally going through everything that I owned, including my tarot decks. Now I do have some under the bed storage that I had in my last apartment and that I have here, and so I still have some there that could probably be weeded down more, but my point is, even my favorites sections got really gone over. So I thought I would start, just kind of run through them. And I'm going to start with I have some like mini collections from like the same creator. And these also happen to be the decks that I use the most. So I'm going to start with those because, truthfully, with my own decks, I mostly use my own decks in terms of usage. But when I do pull from other decks, these first ones that I'm going to show you are decks that I actually pull out the most. So, I'm going to start right off the bat with probably. I'm not going to try to, say my ultimate favorite of my favorites, but these are pretty high up there. These are by Three Tree Tarots. This is a collaboration between Stephanie Burrows and the artist Adam Ohlers. I'm going to probably be saying that wrong. But if you don't follow their like social media, Instagram, you should be, because watching his artwork and stuff like that is just stunning, and I love her. They're just good peoples. That's what I'm going to say about that. But so I love their decks so much. For years, literally years, I used the Oak, Ash, and Thorn tarot for my year aheads and my wheel of the year. I put this I put this in order for something. It must have been a class or something, but I adore this. I've used it a lot. You can tell from the edges because it's this beautiful paper. It's got that nice patina that some of my older decks have on it that I actually really love. This has been well used. It's stunning. I just love it. It's a Rider-Waite-Smith, right? And that says something. I'm not a Rider-Waite-Smith person. And so that a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, of course, most of the decks out there are based on Rider-Waite-Smith. So, but still, this is a beautiful deck. The other one, the second tarot deck that they did was Smoke, Ash, and Thorn, or no, Smoke, Ash, and Ember. Sorry. Wander into a magical world where dragons do exist. Now, I got this because, truthfully, I just love his artwork. But I truly didn't think I would use this much because I'm quite particular about dragons. My understandings of dragons are quite distinct, quite powerful. And I truthfully thought this was going to be a little too sweet. I still wanted it, but I didn't think that it would be a deck that I used. This is actually a stunning deck to work with. It feels very draconic. It has a balance between the sweeter, which I do think is sweet draconic energy, but it has such a balance and it reads so strong. The Major Arcana is really beautiful. This gets requested doing readings with this deck, probably by dragon lovers. There's not a ton of good dragon decks out there. There's not a good ton of dragon decks. So anyways, this one surprised me because I thought it would be more a collection, but I do actually use it and think it is stunning. I'll come to the Oracle deck, but the third of their series, now this was sent to me for the purpose of review. Maybe this one, I know I bought, maybe I bought the first one. I think I bought both of these, and then I think that Oracle and this were sent to me for review. I do like to be clear about what I bought and what was sent, but I think that's why. I think I bought these two, and this was next and sent to me for review, and then this was sent to me for review. I adore this deck. This I used this year. So this is a Heartwood Tarot, and this deck I've used all this year for my year aheads. For my year aheads and for my Wheel of the Years this year. I love this deck. I love this empty house that is so full of life and texture, even though it's empty. There are so many references, there are paintings with the images from the Oak, Ash, and Thorn. I want to know more about this house. I want to have this house in all its glory somehow. I don't know. I just feel like the world of the Heartwood Tarot is so stunning. There's still things hanging out. I want to know. I think that this house, this is my theory, this house stands in a liminal space in a magical forest. And we're seeing one version of the house in which it's all just overtaken by nature and animals. And that just over the line of magical demarcation, there are people living in this house. I truly believe this is a magical house. I adore this deck. Of course, again, the artwork is no question. The art is stunning. I love his artwork. But the house in this deck is such a presence. I adore this deck. This is, this year, this deck and another that I'll show is probably my most used decks that aren't my own decks. So I adore this deck. And then they did this was the fourth. Why did I say five? Am I missing something? What am I missing of theirs? Oh, I need to look that up. Is there enough? This says it says volume 5. This says volume 4. I know this did come before that. I know this one was first. Oh, this says volume 2. This doesn't say volume 1, but this was the first one. Volume 2, volume 4, and volume 5. I wonder what volume 3 is. Now I have to go look that up. I don't know if they have another. I can't imagine I missed that. I don't purposely go out and look for, what's new or anything. I must have missed something. I don't know. This is their Oracle deck. And I love this. I don't use it a ton because I tend to, when I'm going to use an animal deck, I do tend to use one that, just has one animal in it. But I do love this, and I love this thistle. I do love this, and I love to use it obviously in conjunction with any of these decks because the artwork goes together. I think it's really beautiful. I like the keywords that are placed on here. There are some that come, I do love that there's a darkness card. I don't know. There's something about the keywords on here, and I have walkthroughs of all of these, that really is fantastic. I will say I use the tarot decks more, but when I want in conjunction with those, it's got a grief card. I just really do love. It's a good, solid oracle deck. I would still say, like this. This is my favorite, but these are and these I think are equal, but and very, very close behind. Like, this is not a set of decks that I would ever get rid of. Like, they're if I was downsizing to just a very minimal, like, these would always stay. So that's that. You clearly know how I feel about that. I'm gonna grab the other ones. This is another set. Now, this is not all of this is these are decks by MJ Cullinane, and I do not have all of her decks. She has some that are like, I don't know, I'm just guessing here. Please don't quote me on it. Like a all dog deck, or like an all cat deck. I don't know if it's a cat one, but there's some other decks that are just not, things that I would utilize that I don't have. But when I do see that she has a deck coming out, I am certainly going to look, because I use these decks a lot. I use the Crow Tarot, and I actually really like the mass market version. I think tucked away, I have the original version that she printed. But I do actually really like this version of it. I really like the backing. I like the size. This is very much a Rider-Waite-Smith, but because it just crows mostly, right? It really has a open feel to it, and I feel like I can read it however, because it's more of a collage-y. I don't feel constrained by it at all. So it also goes with a lot of types of decks that I use that are very sort of natural palette. So I like to use it like with the Weaver's Oracle, Illustrated Earth Oracle. There's a lot of earthy oracle decks that if I want to pull a quick tarot in, it just matches them in tone. And so that tends to be one. I've used this a ton across the years, and I love it. I do have a little version of it. I don't really use this. I thought I might use it more. But I don't really use this too much. But if I wanted to, obviously, I do love little decks. I definitely do have a little bit more of a collector feel with some of her things. But again, I don't have everything, and I don't really want everything. But I do love this Crow Tarot. It's a good palette for my other of my oracle decks that are very naturey palette. So yeah, so this, but it does not get used as much since now I have her other ones. But I do still pull it. Again, this is generally pulled in conjunction with an oracle deck like the Weaver's Oracle or something like that, where it just has got a neutral, earthy palette that goes nicely with it. And it's kind of for me, this feels kind of like a pip deck. It doesn't really, it is what it is. The card comes up, and I don't pay much attention to the images. I love them, but I don't really work from or react to the images. It feels very much like a pip deck to me. A neutral nature pip deck. That's what it feels like. So then, I don't know, these are not necessarily in the order that they came out. I think actually they may have came out this way. I don't know. This is the Guardians of the Night Tarot. I think this is one of the best kind of mix of an oracle and a tarot. You definitely feel the animal presence, and it just feels like you're getting a combination of a tarot card. Read the tarot, and then you can bring in the animal energy. These don't always work for me. I really truthfully don't particularly love animal tarot decks, because I think there's very small occasions in which they really work. A lot of times I think that the tarot card needs to get out of the way for the animal, and or then the animal is kind of imposing on the energy and the message of the tarot card. And so a lot of times I prefer animal oracles than I do animal tarot decks. This is one of the exceptions. I do think it works beautifully, and I think that, again, it feels like you're getting a double message versus anybody getting in the way of each other, if that makes sense. Now, I did pick up the mass market version, but I trimmed it down, and I think I reduced some of the cards, yeah. I went through and pulled out just, individually, they weren't duplicates. And have just like an animal deck with this, which is great. I can't remember how many cards I ended up with, but it's a nice little animal deck. And again, if I'm using one of these other tarot decks, it's a great version. So I actually really love that. So I have that. I love the Forhaxa Tarot. For my grief readings, or there's two I use it the most in, my grief readings and my Port in the Storm reading. I like the combination of the Forhaxa Tarot and the Urban Crow Oracle. And this has the expansion. Like there were two. There was the original Urban Crow, and then she did an expansion. And so this has both of those. I use this as my ancestor card. I also use this for my smaller ancestor reading. My listen and do. I love this for my listen and do. I shuffle this in as my ancestor card, find it, see what cards on either side for the listen, and then for the do, which is much more action oriented, I'll use the Forhaxa or the Raven's Dream or the Crow, like any of her tarot decks. I actually really, really love this deck, and I use that again in those ways. So, oops, wait, this is the I love this Oracle deck. Again, wait, I'm mixing things up. What happened? Did I put the wrong... Did I mix that? Maybe I just did that? No? I must have done it the last time I used it. Yep. Okay. I don't know if I just did that or if I did it when I last used it. But this is the Crow Tarot. But this card goes here. I love the Crow Tarot with the expansion. I think there's a mass market version, but don't quote me on that. Love my bag for it. Obviously, I wanted them to stay together. And my friend Deirdre, I will put her Etsy at the bottom. She made this bag so that they would, I could keep them together. So there's that. I love the Forhaxa Tarot. Love her back. I love all of her backings. Okay, look, I've definitely got a mix. I've definitely mixed these when I last used them. Let me just make sure. Oh, because that would have been on either side of the community card. Okay, I just set those in there. Whew, don't like to mix my things up. Okay, so that's the Forhaxa. Raven's Dream came out, and of course I had to get it. It was Raven's. And I love her decks. So I did get the Raven's Dream, and I actually really love this. It feels very different than the Crow Tarot. It feels very different from all of her other decks. It does feel like it has a dreamscape component to it. I do like to use it in more sort of liminal space, dream work, those types of things. I don't pull it out as often, but I do love this, and it does feel different. It feels like you're accessing a different space, and I quite love that. I already talked about that. I cut it down. And then I adore this Oracle. I know this is Oracle. We have two Oracles, and we're talking about tarot, but we're doing the collections first, and so I'm just keeping these together. I love this deck. A, I love the back. B, I just love this deck. I definitely use this. Again, I mean, look at that. I love the doors with the choices. There's storms, there's broken things, there's attachment. It just feels like a solid Oracle deck. It's the Liminal Forest. This is really great with the Raven's Dream Oracle. Raven's Dream Tarot. I really like those together, just like I really like Forhaxa or any of these with the Crow. But yeah, I love her decks. Again, I don't just get everything. This is her playing card deck. I did just get this kind of on a whim. I mean, it's a playing card deck, and I collect playing cards. I don't really use it. It's a little bit too busy for me to use as a playing card, and it does feel a little bit, it's just, I think it's just collage work from her, probably different decks that she's made and things like that. So I don't use this, but I collect playing card decks, and I love it for my collection. So there's that. It's called Beyond the Veil playing cards, tarot and oracle, so it's kind of like a combo. So that's that. That is, I use these are decks that I actually utilize even in the last year when I've not used a ton of other decks. So then the next one in that same category is James Eids decks. Now I have a box with big boxes, so there is a big box collection with all of the green glyphs that I have. I'm looking over there. I've got the big book. I have the Ceruleum Oracle deck that's over there because I am going to work on a walkthrough of that. I have the geomancy coins. I wouldn't say that I have I definitely don't have everything, but I have most of his things. I do think anything he does is kind of golden. I love to watch his Kickstarters just because it feels like the Super Bowl of Kickstarters to watch like his things. But I actually use them. But I will say that the Prisma Visions Oracle is, I cannot tell you how, like when I think about, like if I were to get rid of all of my decks except for my own, because at this point I could do everything I need to do from my own decks, I would keep Prisma Visions because it feels like it's one of my decks. And I do not mean that to say to diminish the work that he did, and on the exact opposite of that. There are not a lot of past life decks, focus decks, or liminal space decks at all, right? There's very few of them. And this just works so well for transitional readings, liminal space readings, past life readings is what I really use it for a lot. I've used this deck so much that it literally does feel like one of my decks. And I would, if I stripped all my decks away, except for my own decks, obviously my friend Patrick's astrology decks, that's the only astrology deck that I use, I then just kept those, I would keep this if I got rid of everything else, because I love this. I use both versions depending on what size I need. This is on the table so much, so love that. I actually really love the Prisma Visions Tarot, and I will use these in conjunction with each other. So this gets used constantly. This comes in at times when I want to use it. This one is it's so weird because this is the original, and I actually really love this version. I think it's really beautiful. It really feels like you're in the moonlight. I love this deck, but I don't use it as much. I do like the color pop, when I'm reading for other people, I do like the pop of color, and these just go so well together that I really don't use this very often, and if I do, it's just for myself. But I do love this version of it, and I would almost say, like, if all things being equal, this is not counting, but between these two, this is probably my favorite of the Prisma Visions. But this is the Light Visions. But this one, in terms of which most of my readings are for other people, this one does get used more. I don't use this a lot, but I love it, and I certainly would not get rid of it. And I also feel so strongly about his Open Portals, the other deck. It's in my little travel altar space, but I love the Open Portals Oracle. It's a really interesting mix of playing cards. There's a game that you can play, but there is an oracle based on portals that is quite powerful. I don't use it a ton, but I have used it a number of times in past life work because of the portal energy. It's really interesting. It's an interesting deck. So, and then again, he has a whole collection of green glyphs. I don't use those as much. I have other things I use runes with. I love that he has the full 33 Northumbrian rune set. It's the only like produced deck that is like that. I have a little one that you can just print off or make a printing yourself on Make Playing Cards, but it's the only like one that you can go to a website and buy. So I really appreciate that, but I do have my own, so I use my own. I do love his little oracle deck, but I don't tend to grab for it. So that I love that set, but these are the ones, especially this. I just constantly use those. So there's nothing that would cause me to get rid of this. And again, if I got rid of my whole collection, this is staying with me. So yeah, hope that says what it says. James Eid for the win. I think he has just an interesting mind. I think he has a love for divination and for playing with the idea of divination that I really love to see. I do think that some people just have that joy of playing around with divination and what can we do, what else can be done, that I really feel from James Eid's decks. And there's just this creative joy, I think, in his things that production wise, obviously they are top notch, probably at the top of the game, other than maybe like Baba Studios, but that's like a different top of the game. But production wise, like he's obviously has an art studio. He does things to the nines, and you can tell that. So production wise, it's also amazing, but it's more than that. It is also, again, that spirit of what can I do in this realm of divination. That he's like trying different things and playing in different spaces that I find very appealing, and yeah, absolutely love. So there's that. Now the next one is an oracle, but I'm just gonna put it in here because I have one cubicle that has like sort of collections but again, these are ones that I actually use a lot. And so I am just going to throw this in here because this is kind of surprising. These are a little different, right? They are definitely much more in that sort of mass market. I don't know. They're just kind of got their own thing. I love these decks. Now, these come in two forms. There are books, which I do have, that have little paper cards in them that you kind of peel out. They're perforated. And then this is their card ones, and I like this because what I'll use this for is when, again, and this happens sometimes with I have a walk in the woods reading where I literally take you into my inner landscape and we kind of walk through the woods and you find, a feather, a crystal, a plant, you meet an animal, and then you bump into a fae energy kind of thing. And so this is really great for that type of thing. But there are other times in which I have, I have casting sets, like my little adventure casting set that has a bear in it that stands for a guardian, and I might just want to pull a guardian. Or I have my tokens that have a crystal and an animal, and I might want to pull a crystal card. Although I have one other crystal deck that's my absolute favorite that we'll get to at the oracles. But anyways, there are times in which I actually want to pull one of each or something like that, and I do use these decks. They're probably one of my absolute favorite backings. They're very bold and very colorful. I love that there are scissors in this deck. But anyways, that's obsidian, which is such a powerful crystal. So I do really, again, oh, this is an oracle, but it's on that, it's in that, on that shelf that I've just pulled everything else from. So I did want to point them out. I use these. And so I use these a lot, and it's a little set. And I had a space where it could sit on, and so they're in there. So yeah, it's Oracle, but we've gotten a little splash of Oracle through the others. The rest of what we're going to look at today are just straight tarot decks. I have one, I mean, I have other sets where I have more than one, but they feel more individual. Whereas what I kind of really love about the Three Trees Tarot, and the James Eids and the MJ Cullinane decks is that those are kind of ones that they kind of have a completeness within them, because I have an Oracle deck and several tarot decks that are very much interchangeable, and I can really do what I need to do within that framework. Whereas like I have multiple Baba Studio tarot decks, but I'm just going to take one of those tarot decks and use it. I think that's kind of how I differentiate those things. But anyways, I love these and do use those, and they go on that shelf. So there we go. Okay, that is probably it in terms of like sets. And again, the reason I wanted to start with those is that I pull those out, something from those very consistently. And especially again, I think it really showed this past year when I really, unless obviously somebody requests a particular deck, I'm really mostly utilizing a lot of my own decks. And so coming from a year like that, the ones that I still do go and grab, I think really stand out as being favorites. And I will actually grab for my first straight up tarot deck. I think I'm going to grab a pile, but I will say that I also will reach for the Lost Forest Tarot. That is one that I have used this year as well. I do love this. I love the first version, which I don't think you can get anymore. I have the second version as well. My eyesight has a real hard time with there was like a gray tone to the titles on the second one that is hard for me to see. Again, that's my own eye issues. But so I prefer the first version. There is again an openness to this deck. This is, I've said this before, like this is the closest until I did my own inner world work. This is the closest deck that sort of represented my inner landscape space. And it leaves space. It's an open tarot deck that leaves space for just reading how you're going to read. That's actually quite beautiful. And it's one of my favorite tarot decks, and I have definitely picked this up still. So that's the Lost Forest Tarot. Definitely grabbed that as well. Okay, so I'm literally, this shelf is right here. I'm gonna grab these ones that are in boxes. All of these deck bags are from my friend Deirdre. I'm gonna grab here or not. Is that all of them? Yes. So we'll start here. These are all, again, I love these. They're like sleeping bags for your tarot decks. This is amazing. So yes, not on purpose, but I am greatly plugging. I have tons of them. I have them up the wazoo, playing card size. Like I adore them. For just my favorite way to hold a deck that doesn't have a box. So this I think was the very first one that she sent me. I think on a video I have this amazing copy of the, oh, do I have the paper in here? It's an old Celtic pip deck that is absolutely stunning, but I don't think it had a box. And so she made this, so I really do think she'll probably know, but I do think that this was the very first. Yep. Yeah, I think so, because she's giving me all the information. I think this was the very first deck bag. But this is for the Celtic Tarot, which I adore the deck and the bag. This is one of my, obviously all of these are favorite tarot decks, so they're just favorites for different ways. This is one of my all-time favorite tarots. This is a John Bauer. That little tuck box was literally falling apart. But I saved the front of it because I actually do love the front of the box. So this is a John Bauer. If you just want to, again, take a walk in the magical woods and get lost, I really recommend that you don't think too hard about, Rider-Waite-Smith. I mean, look at that. It's one of my favorites. The use of light and shadow is beautiful and surprising, because obviously this is a pre-existing artwork that has turned into a tarot deck, but it's really quite beautiful if you kind of treat it slightly more like an oracle deck and just let it say what it's going to say. And I love this. It just looks like a fairy tale outer piece. I adore the combination. Again, one of my all-time favorite decks. Now, this is my copy of this. Was a test copy. This is the Abyss Tarot by Anna Torin, and this is one of my all-time favorite tarot decks. It's black and white. She did some extra cards for people who don't read Rider-Waite-Smith, and some of those cards that are just don't quite go numerologically. If you're a real numerological person, she gave you extras that you could choose from. I do have an extra in here that isn't in the final extras, but this has been well used, well loved. I do have the mass market version, but this is one of my favorite decks, and I love the bag for this. Again, every one of these decks I'm showing you is a favorite tarot deck, so it's kind of repetitive in that way. This is what my OG, look at those edges. This is my original, oh my gosh, I'm blanking. This is, oh my goodness, I've got too many decks in my brain. This is the Tarot of the Hidden Realms. Oh my goodness. I love this deck. I still love this deck, but and that segues good into this. But this is one of my earliest decks. I had the originally the Llewellyn Tarot, Shadowscapes. Then I had, and I really dove into the kind of, by that time I'd been reading tarot for like 10 years, but I wanted to sink a little more into Rider-Waite-Smith and just to figure it out well. And so I really sunk into Shadowscapes. And then I don't know if it's Druidcraft and then this, or this then Druidcraft, but those four are what I would kind of consider as my OG, four. But I still adore this deck, and I love her artwork. We'll see on this next one, it will say her name. But love this deck, obviously, and it's one of my OGs. Look at this. So this, I love the guidebook so much. And so Deirdre made where the guidebook can go in here. And then the bag is the same as all these other bags, but you can connect it to this thing. I mean, come on. And this fabric that she stitched onto here is so amazing. I know this is a side plug for her things, but I mean, look at that. This is the Witch Sister Tarot by Julia Jeffries. Again, oh, hello. I'll put that away, but I won't right now. I watched as she, followed her Facebook as she created these images. This deck is absolutely amazing, and the guidebook is amazing as well. And I think she might be kind of continuing with this theme, and I don't know if it's an oracle deck or a tarot deck, but kind of with specific like Scottish witches and things that she's focusing on. That's amazing too. I don't know. I can't remember if it's very specifically for, or if she's just kind of playing with things and thinking it will go into something. I can't tell you, but I mean, this deck is so powerful. It is such an amazing deck. High top favorite. Love, love, love. Oops, let's put this back in here, and obviously love this very much. So that's that. So yeah, these are definitely big favorites. They're just favorites that I don't have in the box. I still have the box for this. This is a mass market deck. That some of these are out of print, but this is mass market. You can still get Tarot of the Hidden Realms. You can still get Tarot of the Abyss as a mass market. John Bauer, I think you can still get. The Celtic Tarot is out of print. So that is those. And then the two others that they aren't in boxes, I guess that's how we're going, this is the Mysteries of Mary Tarot. Probably the most, I want to say this is the most expensive deck I've ever purchased. I'm not a Catholic, but I grew up a happy young Catholic. It had a lot of grandmother energy for me. And so for me, this is kind of more in touch with those kind of spaces, like with the Guardian Angel Tarot, that is very much tied to what I can think of as I'm very much connected to Mary. I don't think as a child, as a young, easy Catholic child, like we weren't, I know people have horrible experiences in all types of religions, including Catholicism, but my experience with Christianity was very powerfully nurturing in Catholicism much more than Protestantism. That was just my personal experience. So when I went to get into, and it was through Mary, I talked to Mary, Statue of Mary, constantly when I was little, and I don't even think I knew that I have no memories of thinking about Jesus or like God about outside of that with that, because I think I was maybe just too young. I just thought about Mary. But what I really love about this deck is that, and the guidebook, is that it really explores the intersection between folk tales and fairy tales and various versions of what the Mary archetype really is this blending and morphing of other energies that is so interesting. So yeah, I don't use this. I will use it sometimes in healing space, and again with something that is very kind of tapping into Mary energy in terms of nurturing, but it's not straight up Mary as I think. It's more Mary as various faces of the goddess, like Bridget and other faces. So it's a more of a tapping into childhood comfort about religion that I don't have actually a lot of, if that makes sense. And then this one is the Augenblick Tarot. This I believe is out of print. I've had this for quite some time. And I think like for a while there would be small batches. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know if this is still available, but I do love it. It's, obviously curated art. So these are art pieces. I don't think that it is collage curated art. I think it's just straight up curated art. But don't quote me on that. I don't use this, but I do love it, and I have used it. And I do love it. There's a peacefulness about it, similar to the Majestic Earth. There is sort of a stepping into a museum. Museums were free. My mom took us to the zoo and the museum all the time, and I took my kids to the museum and the zoo all of the time. And so it just, to me, there's a sense, it's almost like walking into a bookstore or a library or a museum where there's just that sense of not reverie, the opposite of that. There's a sense of peacefulness and stepping in through time that I think is really a wonderful visceral feeling. So again, I don't really use this a lot, but I've used it, but I don't ever reach for this. But I love this deck. It's obviously one of my favorites. Okay, so I know I need to speed up, but what are we gonna do? Okay, I'm gonna speed through a little bit faster now. I'll stop pulling them out of the boxes, or I'll try to. I'm just gonna pile the ones that I can reach right here. Giving special place for those. Okay, I'm just gonna quick grab them. Why do I love them? There we go. This is Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery by Robert M. Place. This to me just feels like a justice, or I don't know, it feels like a clean air energy intellectual deck is what it feels like to me, but it's not so messy as some of the more esoteric intellectual decks that are just tons of things piled on. It feels clean, it feels like air. Similar vibe feeling wise in some ways to I love the cleanness of the energy of the, oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Again, too many decks, but I love this for that. Darkness of Light is almost the opposite. Darkness of Light I love so much. This has a very masculine feel. I just love this deck. There's many of the decks, like I love the Chariot card in this deck. This is a well-used deck. I used to use it a ton in my sort of base for past life reading. So a lot of use out of that deck. This is the Art History Tarot for Past Lives. I more use this as a oracle deck. I use it just for the places and times. So that's why this could go into the oracle section, because I really don't use it as a tarot deck. So I'm actually gonna but it is a tarot deck. So this is more, not so much this is like an absolute favorite deck, but it is a very used deck because there's very few past life decks, and she curates old art to connect with places and times, and so it's a great resource that we actually don't. But as like a straight up tarot deck, I really don't use this as that. It's more of an oracle deck. This is just stunning. I just love this deck. I love the pink. It's a pip deck. It's pink, but it has a dark feel to it and a style to it. I don't know. I love everything about this deck. It's just one of those things. Do I use it for client readings? No. Is it just part of my collection? 100% yes, but I adore everything about this deck. 100%. Oops, there we go. But it's called Tarochi, and this is the vintage, and it's by Mr. Friborg, Friborg. Even with my glasses, I can't read that. Here we go. Maybe I can read this better. Yeah, Mr. Friborg, classic 78 card tarot deck. Yeah, it's just, I love this. It feels like, I just love it. Druidcraft, such a workhorse. If you are sort of a nature-based practice, this course is mixing druidic and sort of witchcraft energies, but just if you follow like the dance of the Wheel of the Year, if you follow sort of druidic type traditions, nature traditions, following the dance of the Lord and the Lady, it's just a solid like deck. And if you're Rider-Waite-Smith, it can work that way, but it's just a solid deck that just really leans into nature-based practice and mindset really well. It's just a solid deck. Like, I recommend it for anybody. Shadowscape, I adore. This is not actually my OG. My daughter has my OG, but I love this deck. It's a scrying deck to me. There's so many little things in the cards that one thing will just pop out, and so it kind of functions as a scrying as well as a tarot deck. Very interesting. But again, one of my with Tarot of the Hidden Realms, and then the Llewellyn Tarot, which is actually in a totally other cubicle, so I'm not going to go get that, but that is like my kind of core set of original decks that I used for a really long time. Hush Tarot, it has, still to this day, I think this is not a fairy tarot, but it has the most feel, I think, true feel of fairy energy, of liminal space, of walking that edge between our world and their world. So not like fully into the world of fairy, but in that space between where things, you've got bits and pieces of humanity, but then it's been moved and shifted by fae magic. It's not comfortable energy, but it is the closest, I think, currently that you can get to a deck that feels like the liminal spaces and the roads and the paths between our world and fae. Other than my sort of deck that I made that's like walking the kind of liminal space of modern technology, that my very, very first like experiment that has a very liminal space, like you're walking that boundary, which you can't get. So this is the only one that I would say really walks that line. Brian Froud's oracles, obviously, but even those definitely do, but those are much more rooted in fae, whereas this is straddling that in between the human realm and the fae realm. Very powerful, a little uncomfortable, fantastic. Tarot of Delphi, it's still not available. There's always been talk that she is going to put out another version of it, but I've never seen that come into fruition, which is too bad. This is truly a curated masterpiece, in my opinion. She does such an amazing job of picking artwork that it's not just the picture, but what is the theme behind that painting that actually goes with each of the tarot cards. I truly believe this is a masterfully curated art deck that I wish would come out in another edition, because it's amazing. Margaret Peterson, most of you who know me know, this is just a stunning deck. I adore her artwork. This deck has some of my favorite versions of decks. The Pentacles is amazing. I love this version with the back. This one gets requested. I have somebody who requests this for certain readings a lot. But I do use this because I do have, and I have somebody else that will request it sometimes. I definitely use it more in like my grief readings. It's like a large deck, so like where I'm using 3 cards. My grief readings, and sometimes my Port in the Storm reading. But yeah, it's a high favorite of mine. I adore the Shimmering Veil Tarot. This is by Scylla Conway. I will bump into some of her Oracle. Her Book of the Dead Oracle is one of my hands down favorite Oracle decks, and I do love this Shimmering Veil Tarot so much. So obviously that's there. This and the Book of the Dead makes a powerful grief reading, Port in the Storm reading thing, but for somebody who's ready to go like a little bit deeper into space, that is a powerful combo. This is Tarot by Caro. This my friend Patrick sent me when he was like cleaning out collection or something. I love this deck. There is something about this illustrative style, kind of, I would say, minimal color palette. Right, there's probably red, yellow, green. Is it just red, yellow, and green? You got black. There's a little bit of dark blue. But it's like a minute. I love that. I just really love this deck. If I want like a modern, clean deck, I've used this quite a bit. But I adore this deck, and I would never have purchased this deck. I believe this still is where you can purchase it, but don't quote me on it. I adored this deck. This is a Somnia Tarot. Again, I think Patrick sent me this probably like after he would get decks and he'll play around with them and have an experience with it, and then he's kind of moving on. And which is to my benefit, but I didn't. This is not a deck I would have purchased. I'm actually very claustrophobic, and so there's a lot of images where these are photographs, but there's a lot of images with like bags over your head and things. And again, I have had requests for this, but I really had a visceral reaction to this deck. Again, very watery energy, very sort of Eight of Cups, going on that Eight of Cups journey. So I don't use it a lot, but I do use this sometimes, and it very much feels like you're in, for me, the landscape of the High Priestess is between the energy of water or cups, right, where here's our emotional landscape, beneath that is our personal power base of water. And then down here is source, like moon, water, moon energy. The landscape of the High Priestess is between those two spaces. She's navigating between those. This feels like it's that, navigating that journey space between. Very powerful. Birdcrafter Tarot, again, I'm not a big fan of decks that mix. They just don't usually end up doing it well, of like herbs or animals or crystals or whatever with tarot. I generally feel like just make an oracle deck, right? It doesn't have to be a tarot deck. Like, make an oracle deck and give whatever that system is its own energy. It doesn't have to meld with tarot. But the Herb Crafters Tarot does such an amazing job curating the herbs with the tarot deck. I just think it's very, very well done. Very, very well done. And I've looked at tons of, herbal type decks. And again, generally I say, hey, just do an oracle deck. Don't mix the two. This one mixes the two amazingly. So there's that pile. Let me put these back and grab the next pile. Okay, we actually are nearing the end, I promise. I wanted to put this out here. This Tarot de St. Croix, I put this in the same category as the Tarot by Caro. Again, there's something about the color palette that I really love these two decks. This isn't, again, it's a different style of art, and I really like that clean illustrative style, but I really like this deck. It feels like, I don't really like modern tarot decks. There's very few. But this feels like a very good space between the modern world and the sort of tarot, more mystical world, that it just blends so nicely. So this one, oh dear, I'm not surprised that I would dropped. They kind of, you look at them, they even match color palette wise, but these two together, I've used this a ton. Yeah, I love these decks. Okay, I wanted to say that one. Do I have, that's an oracle. I think I didn't keep out, this is the version that I love. I do love the Moonchild Tarot, the original one. This is the Shadow Work edition. But this is the one, I didn't think, I was kind of like, oh, you don't really need this version of, like, we have the Moonchild, we don't need, 100 versions of the same deck, right? But I actually do really love this deck. I wish that, people were a little less supermodel-y, I guess, or I don't know how to explain it, with some of her decks. So it's not my absolute favorite, and this definitely leans to the feminine, but I love the Moonchild Tarot, and this shadow version, I use this a lot with grief readings, and again, not as much my Port in the Storm, but mostly just my grief readings. And this is one that does get used, and I actually quite like this shadow version. I do love the original, very gold tones though. Doesn't quite feel like the moon, but I love the Moonchild Tarot original. But I do actually love the Shadow Work Edition. There are some cards that I like. I think I like better in the first, but overall, this is the one that I keep out, and this is the one that I use. So, love it. Love the Keymaster. I have first gotten their tarot deck, or their playing card deck. It's one of my all-time favorite playing card decks. But then they created this gorgeous. It has the playing cards, and then the more what we now, those were also playing cards, but the more what we recognize more as tarot symbols overlaid in gold. It's just gorgeous. It has a very modern mystical feel because of the combination of the style, kind of fantasy modern mystical is the best way I can put it. I don't use this a ton, like I don't use it for clients a lot, but I love this. And again, I love the playing card deck, and you can obviously just take the minors there, but it's really gorgeous. These people, this company, House of the Rising Spade, I think, was the name of the playing card deck, and then they made the Keymaster Tarot. But this is Stockholm 17. Their playing cards are As someone who collected playing cards long before tarot cards, I am a huge fan of their playing card decks. But there's that. Speaking of playing card decks, this is not in print. I really wish this was in print. People keep asking me, like, can I find this somewhere? I wish you could. This is a tarot deck made in the style, right? It feels like a tarot deck. And so it's all of the majors are done in the style of the, kind of OG feeling court cards. I adore this. Someone who adores playing card divination. I love this deck. I believe it was a Kickstarter. I'm 99% sure it was a Kickstarter I purchased it on, but they haven't continued to sell it, and I think it's really too bad. You can, I believe, still get the Arcana Tarot playing card, which is the same concept. It's one of my favorite playing card decks. And it's one of my favorite. And I use this a ton when I just need a small deck, especially my past life readings. So it is a full tarot, but it just expands their playing card deck. So absolutely, which is similar to like my Nellie's deck, right? This is to me perfection. And I think you can still get at some version of this. This you cannot. I wish they would bring it back. This is a small version of Dreams of Gaia, but I love it. I love the Dreams of Gaia Tarot. It's not a deck I use a lot. I used it for a long time. Just because, again, I do a lot of client readings, and there is a lot of changes to this deck, right? The majors are changed. The minors' trajectories are changed. Beautiful job. This is, they were changing decks long before we realized, right? Playing with them, tweaking how many cards there were in the ordering. And I just think she does a really good job of sort of making her version of a tarot deck really have a beautiful movement between the numbered cards. It's just a smart deck. It's a smart example of taking the bones of tarot and playing along the edges of it that I think is really well done and doesn't get enough credit. This is what I was talking about, like with this one. Although this is even more neutral, but these both have a very clean feel. This is a Fountain Tarot. I still would argue this is probably one of my favorite modern versions of the Rider-Waite-Smith. This is a Fountain Tarot. I have an image of this hanging on my wall. I know that some people say this feels cold. I don't agree. I love the Fountain card. For me, this feels neutral. If I want to do a reading that has nothing, just leave me a neutral palette to, a strong emotional reading that we just need to not have the deck bring anything. Just keep this beautiful open energy for the card itself, this is one of them. I still think this is really a powerful achievement in modern tarots that I think is stunning. And then this one is the Children of Litha. Now I understand, like, she always talked about going on and doing like all of the different wheel turns in the same format so that you can mix and match them. And I think she's done another one. I think my friend Deirdre has. I haven't gone back to look closely. But I think there's another one of these. This is just such a great representation of the natural world. You have the Fey realm powerfully existing in the majors. You have the animal and plant kingdom in the numbered cards. And then you have the different cultures of humans in the court cards. So for me personally, who, you know, that is a representation of the different, you know, major energies of the world really, really beautifully. So it's just gorgeous. It does have some difficult, like, I think it's the Ten of Swords. It's kind of difficult when it comes up. The Three of Swords is super powerful. At first it was like, oh no, but it's super powerful, reads really powerfully. I think it might be the Ten of Swords. Don't quote me on that. That's kind of hard for, again, if you're just depending on your client. Some people don't do well with like dead animals and things like that, but really beautiful and very representative of that broad stream or covering all the bases energetically of the world. And then Marielle needs no introduction. This is very important to me because this is a trimmed OG version where my friend Patrick wrote out the titles, so there can be no more perfect. There is a second edition. I like some of the cards in the second edition that were changed. Because I'm not a big fan. Like, this is not one I use a lot for clients or some people that request it. But that I wouldn't use. I mean, some of them are just, it's a stunning deck. But there are, nothing is going to beat that death card. But there are uncomfortable cards, and the Hierophant is the one that most people, I love that. I'm not a fan of the Hierophant card, but the other, which gets a different card in the second version, but this is where it's at for me, really, is the original. And so this is a special edition for me, and not one that it's a powerful, powerful deck. No question at all. So that's almost it. I have actually just one more little set here, which is my Baba Studio decks. Of my Baba Studio decks, I adore the Bohemian Gothic Tarot. Is of my walkthroughs probably my favorite walkthrough. Not that I rewatched them, but I loved that walkthrough. I love this deck so much. I actually really love the Tarot of Prague deck. Very, very Rider-Waite-Smith feeling. I adore the Mythical Creatures Tarot. This is a pip deck that, people that are not pip deck users don't mind me using. Like, I do use this now and again. Love it. Love the Victorian Romantic. This one, somebody had given me in a different language, and I had said if it ever came up, because Baba Studio decks are not cheap. The production is also not cheap. So I'm not saying it's not worth the price, but they aren't cheap. And I always said if this ever came back in English, I would pick it up. And it did come back, and I did pick it up. I just think it's beautiful. I definitely use this now and again. I like it in, like romance kind of readings. I don't know. It's just beautiful. And then the Fairy Tale Tarot, which is, again, I think was out of print. And it was another one of those if it ever comes up again. I don't use these types of decks a lot because they do feel a little bit more oracle, and you do really kind of feel like you have to go into the story, but it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Again, their production and her guidebooks are just really well curated and drawn and just all of the things. So Baba Studio. And that's it. That's all the decks. Oh, I have one more. Sorry. And actually, I should look over on my. I don't. Yes, I actually will have to. I'm going to show you a couple more. But this is the Ancestral Path Tarot. This is the original version. It's just stunning. I mean, this is just a stunning deck. It's so powerful. There is a mass market version. I think it's huge. But there is something about the cardstock of the original. Again, these are way out of print. Again, I use this in Ancestor Space. And this is a very, very precious deck to me. So that's that. Let me grab, because I have some that are like in my Ancestor Space, so let me grab those real quick. Okay. Much like the Ancestral Path Tarot, this is a copy of the Greenwood Tarot that is way, 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 way out of print. This is a unicorn deck. This was I don't remember, Patrick, it was like both of these were like birthday, Christmas, like for years, like present so there's a lot of connection to my best friend, but then also just powerful decks. This stays down in my Ancestor Space. I mean, look at that bear. So this is a Greenwood. I actually also love, now I'm blanking on the remake by Will Worthington. I'm not going to pull out my Will Worthington collection because I actually would have to move my bed to get to that cubicle. But I do have I have all of the Will Worthington decks. Oh my goodness, what's the other name of this deck? I will have to look it up. I'm sure somebody will put it in the comments. I actually really like that version of it as well. So that is available that you can get. These are very hard to get. They are probably my most prized possessions. And then also the Vision Quest Tarot. This is just like a AGM deck. Again, I think there's probably this is a problematic deck in terms, I don't know all of the history about it. I doubt it was made by somebody who was Native American. So I think this deck is probably got some problematic aspects in terms of appropriation and who should be making this type of deck. But I have to say, I do really love this deck. It's very simple. It feels, I do actually like the keywords on them. I just use it in Ancestor Space as tapping into spirit of the land in which I was born on. And so it's one of those kind of odd decks for me to be, but I've had the sweetest of readings, sweetest supportive readings with this deck. So there's that. These two are just in my Ancestor Space. This one is often down there. I used to keep some underneath, but my 1-year-old granddaughter likes to get under there and pull things out. And these are not decks that I would want to get pulled out. And this does have a sleeve that I put it in, but it's a lot of times it's open and out and just higher now because these are not decks. I do have little Oracle decks that I let her play with, but not these decks. So they kind of have to move up. But that's it. That is my collection of what I would consider and I tried to give like a quick reason on each of them why that they're favorite decks. And I do have other tarot decks. I did keep, I have a big bin under the bed. So I didn't get rid of everything else, but these are the ones that if I did get rid of everything else, these are not decks that I would get rid of. Now, obviously, if I was coming down to literal nothing, but there's things that I love about each one of these decks, and I hope that you enjoyed that. I know people like seeing favorites. Collections, and I've done this before. We've gone through my cubicles, but this has been gone through and sort of curated. I know I put some back, not away. Now, I didn't get rid of them, but nothing in my favorites was gotten rid of, but it definitely went down into some secondary position where I could, like in with push comes to shove, like I could get rid of that big under the bin, and I would miss some of the decks in it, but these would not go in that. So I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I hope that you have a wonderful day or night, or whatever, wherever and whenever it is for you when you're watching this.